Our family has been using ZYTO for about the last 4 years, and we have a family of 4 people. When we first went to ZYTO, we were referred to ZYTO because we thought our oldest daughter, when she first got sick, had allergies, and we thought ZYTO can help with allergies. That's how it was referred to us. And we went and we found out she did have allergies. We all had allergies. We all had leaky gut as kind of the root cause of allergies, we learned over time. ZYTO is very good at dealing with allergies. I had spring hay fever allergies every year, and ZYTO just knocks those right out. What I did find, though, is that my allergies would come back every year, and I would have to go get more ZYTO treatments until I finally healed my gut, changed my diet, and solved kind of the root problem of the allergies. And then the ZYTO allergy treatments held, and now I don't need allergy treatments anymore, and I go through the spring and the summer just fine. So ZYTO is very good at allergies. And in this kind of introductory video, I'm going to talk more about what I think ZYTO is good at and what I think ZYTO is bad at. This is my own personal opinion. I am not paid by ZYTO. I am not a ZYTO practitioner. I do not want to be a ZYTO practitioner. This is all the information about ZYTO I wish I had had when we first started 4 years ago, and all the information that I've learned over those years of trial and error and observation, and going through, spending hours going through results and sifting through and trying to understand what we could get out of ZYTO. ZYTO has been with us throughout our whole health journey, from being somewhat sick to being debilitated to being healthy again. So ZYTO is something that we still do even though we're healthy and we have no symptoms. We do it about once every month or once every 2 months. It's kind of what I call at this point disaster prevention. So I think ZYTO has some things that our family gets out of it that help prevent us from disaster. So let me just dive into those for a minute. ZYTO, I think, is very good at allergies, although those treatments will reverse, I think, if you don't heal your gut. That was at least our experience. ZYTO is very good at drainage and detox, meaning if your body, maybe your kidneys are overloaded or your liver and you're not draining or detoxing well, that can often cause symptoms. And ZYTO is very good at unsticking the body from those events and figuring out where you're stuck. So detox and drainage, it's pretty good at. It's also pretty good at methylation. The methylation cycle is very complicated. I don't think there's necessarily one methylation supplement that can fix a given person. But these energetic ZYTO treatments for the methylation pathway have seemed to really help overall our family's methylation. Since we've been doing the ZYTO treatments for methylation, I've noticed we aren't often on methylation supplements anymore, and if we are, it's very low doses. So I think those treatments have really helped. Not all practitioners have the YASCO RNA foods and all of the methylation pathway things. I would encourage, if you're working with a practitioner, to encourage that practitioner to get those things, because I think they are actually really effective. So those are some of the things that ZYTO is good at. Some of the things that ZYTO is not good at, ZYTO is not necessarily good at root cause problems. So ZYTO will tell you what is acutely bothering your body the most, but it won't tell you maybe some underlying root causes that are causing that problem really fundamentally. So for example, if you have a candida showing up a lot on ZYTO, yeah, you probably do have candida, but that candida might not be there if you didn't have, heavy metal toxicity or gut dysbiosis, problems in your GI tract, or parasites. So ZYTO is not good at sort of underlying root causes. So those include things like heavy metal toxicity. Yes, metals will come up on ZYTO, but they'll only come up if they're actively detoxing and bothering your body, which is usually not the case for most of us. Most of us, our bodies are good at sort of hiding and storing the metals away so that they don't bother us. It's not good at dental infections. So these dental infections, I had cavitation infections for 25 years in my wisdom tooth sockets. I never saw that come up on ZYTO, even though that was really bringing down my immune system, my overall health. But I never knew, and ZYTO never told me. So dental infections, parasites. Parasites will come up on ZYTO, but often they come up at a very low level. And a lot of times practitioners will say, oh, that's, item number 200, don't worry about it, you've got these other things. Well, yeah, but parasites are a root cause of a lot of illness, and it's possible that if those parasites weren't there, those other 200 things wouldn't be there either. So it's not very good at parasites, either diagnosing or treating parasites. It is, what else? I think those are the things that I would sort of complain about ZYTO not being great at. But it is very good, again, at allergies and detox and drainage, and that's primarily what our family uses it for. Acute symptoms, it can often help with acute symptoms as well. So I am going to go through an example ZYTO scan. I think that's the best way to explain how I look at this and how I understand it and how I use it. So the first thing I do when I have a ZYTO scan is I don't freak out. There are a lot of things on this scan that sound horrible. There are viruses, there are bacteria, there may be Lyme disease, there may be all kinds of things. Even if you take a healthy person off the street with no symptoms who says they're perfectly healthy, they will probably also have lots of scary things come up on their ZYTO scan. So the first thing I do is I don't freak out. I realize that our immune system is a wonderful thing. It's fighting all kinds of things for us in the background. It may be fighting some of these things. It may be that ZYTO is not perfect, that some of these things might not be there, or they might be actually other things that are similar to the things on this list. So ZYTO is not it's not an FDA approved device, and it's not 100% accurate all the time. So I remember that, and I remember the fact that our immune system is a wonderful thing. In my experience over the 4 years, I found that ZYTO is usually pretty correct, not 100% correct, but it's usually pretty close to what, in hindsight, to what was probably going on, at least acutely. Again, not those fundamental root cause problems, but acutely what was going on. So the first thing I do is I don't freak out. And this ZYTO scan is on the website, so take a look at it and maybe follow along with me, or you can download it and print it out. This is from Soraya in February 2015. And in February 2015, as some background information, we had just gotten back from grandparents' house, and I know they have a moldy basement. I've seen black mold down there, and I can feel that there's mold down there. So we had just gotten back from that. We had just gotten back from a 4 or 5 hour plane ride as well. And she had been kind of off of her medications for about a day and a half while we were packing up and traveling, and sort of too busy to take any herbs or medications or anything. So she had kind of been off of a lot of things. So with that background, let's dive right in. What I do first is I look at the left-hand column, which is called initial, and that is the value of her ZYTO scan before the ZYTO computer program has accounted for any balancers or any medications or solutions. So that's the initial is her initial scan value, and then the next column, the projected outcome, that's what ZYTO predicts will be her new number after she accounts for the balancers list, either takes those supplements or gets a ZYTO treatment. So what I do is I look at the initial column first, and I look for high numbers. So these numbers are all relative. Every time we go into ZYTO, the practitioner recalibrates the machine based on where we are at that point in time. It's based on, how much we've drunk, whether we're dehydrated or hydrated, or how alkaline our bodies are. The machine needs to be recalibrated. So I don't take the absolute value of these numbers so seriously. I just look for the highest numbers. The highest numbers, most positive, and the most negative. And the positive numbers tend to mean an acute problem, something that's coming through or bothering us right now, and negative numbers tend to mean a chronic problem that's been bothering us for a long time. So going down her list here, I see some joints, connective tissue, grippa. I see a 302.42 grippa. Grippa is like the flu virus or a virus. So she's got some kind of viral thing that kind of makes sense given that we just flew on an airplane here. Babesia, 220.43 Babesia. Babesia is a co-infection of Lyme. Let's see what else. 250.45 reprint folate, so some kind of folate problem. Acute, again, it's positive, so that's some kind of acute problem. Back to the Babesia at 220, that also is an acute problem. She's had Babesia for a long time, along with Lyme disease. The fact that the Babesia here is coming up as acute, I take it as a good sign that the Babesia is coming out and her body is acutely, in this moment, fighting it and dealing with it and hopefully draining it out. So I take it kind of as a good sign that Babesia came up in kind of a weird way. Let's see, what else do we have here? 211 scars, interesting. I'm not sure what's scarring, but I can say that she is growing. Just kind of skimming through, these numbers aren't so high. Polarity disturbance, 223.91. That's probably from the airplane, I would guess, that, she's a little off, just in terms of everything. Hydration, polarity, where am I, time change, things like that. Going down the list, I see neurotransmitters at 278.37, so something going on in the brain. Minus 179.19 retrovirus, so a virus that she's had chronically for a long time. Minus 167.46 miasms, again something with the brain. 172.93 blastocystis hominis, so blasto is hard to get rid of, but she's dealing with it acutely, typically resides in the digestive system, not surprising. Turning the page to page 2 here, 278.75 Trichinella spiralis. I have no idea what that is. I would have to Google it. Again, I take kind of all these things from the ZYTO scan with a bit of a grain of salt. Sometimes I go Google them and look them up. Sometimes I don't. This one to me sounds kind of like a mold, spiralis. It sounds like a mold or a fungus. Probably makes sense given that we just came back from Grandma and Grandpa's moldy basement. So interesting. Going down looking for high numbers, minus 133.42 Borrelia, so Lyme, chronic Lyme, we knew that. She's still working on it, we knew that. 133.76 influenza C virus, so again some viral stuff acutely that she's dealing with, probably from the plane. Minus 157.84 flat warts, so she's got some flat warts, which we have actually kind of been seeing a little bit, because if I remember right, she had some skin bumps and skin issues going on at that time. So interesting that the warts came up. Minus 162.20 pesticides, so some pesticide exposure. We've all got that these days, chronic pesticide exposure. Minus 205.26 mycotoxins. So that one says that there's chronic mycotoxins. She's had some infections, and usually infections and viruses, bacteria, viruses, are things that cause mycotoxins as they die off. So not surprising. So that's her scan, and I kind of take it with a grain of salt. I look for the high numbers. I think about what could have caused them. Do they make sense? Is there anything coming up here that maybe I want to change? For example, here on the top of the second page, 88.89 lymphatic system. If that were coming up a little bit higher, in the 200s or so, I would probably start lymph massage on her. things like that I'm looking for. If I kind of blur my eyes over the first and second page, you know, I see a lot of Borrelia, Lyme, some virus, Grippa virus, blastocystis, some dysbiotic bacteria, the molds, kind of a couple of moldy kind of things in here. So interesting. I just kind of take that all with a grain of salt. Now what I do is, after scanning for sort of what are the problems that are bothering her body, we scan for balancers. And balancers are things that could potentially help her with the problems that we've scanned for. So this is kind of done with us in two sections. Our practitioner goes through her databases and sort of guesses what she thinks might be able to help. And then I also have her run what I call My Garage, which is all the supplements and drainage remedies and medications that we have in our garage for things that might be helpful that we already own and already have in the house. So let me mention at this point, I forgot to mention in the beginning, that ZYTO can't scan everything every time. There's a limit to how many problems you can scan and also how many balancers you can scan, because your body with the bioresonance, biofeedback system can only take so much in one session before the body kind of gets tired and stops responding. So in ZYTO, based on our symptoms, the practitioner scans various databases, in our case Lyme, bacteria, some mold. I asked her to scan, she'll scan specific databases. She can't scan everything. And then we'll scan specific balancers that she thinks might help with some of these problems. So here, under the balancers, the first two things, SAMe and methionine, those are things that she scanned and that she found to be helpful from her databases. She actually energetically imprinted those two things into a bracelet, which has a hologram on two sides, and they come in various colors depending on your mood. She lasers the treatment into these bracelets, and then we wear the bracelets. And this may all sound kind of hokey pokey, and maybe it is, but I found that it works. At least for things like allergies and drainage and methylation. Again, the things that ZYTO shines on, I found that this actually really does work. It used to be, before she got these bracelets, that she would laser into vials of water, kind of like a homeopathic remedy, and then we would wear them around our neck. Sometimes we would drink a little bit of them. This is what she used to do when we first started, but now she does it in the bracelet. And towards the end of when we've been working with her recently with ZYTO, she even will laser directly into your watch or into any metal that you happen to be wearing. So that's the treatment she did. She did SAMe in this case at 175. The higher the number of the balancer, the better it is, the more beneficial it is. And she did the methionine, which was at 612, so that one is a huge number compared to these other numbers here. So those were the treatments she did in the bracelet. And then, starting with the 138, those are what I call My Garage. Those are all the things that we have in the house. So interestingly, if I kind of go through that, Floristore is a probiotic yeast, good for stomach viral infections, but generally good for viruses. Bao-He Wen Plus, that is a Chinese herbal formula for stomach and digestion, sort of. Interesting that that's coming up next at 110. And then Byron White, A to L, coming up at 104. That's a drainage remedy usually used for Lyme, but it can be used as well for other bacteria and viruses. Biocystis tea is sort of an antimicrobial tea that we brew. Activated charcoal, that's an interesting one. That generally helps detox everything from toxins to chemicals to metals to mycotoxins to viral debris. So activated charcoal is a kind of something that often comes up testing beneficial for us. Blastocystis hominis nosode N37, that's a homeopathic remedy for blastocystis. Again, kind of a drainage. Her body's saying, help me drain it out, I can do it. That's how I read this. Banoside diethyl, so that's a parasite medication for worms. Retazorb liposomal glutathione. Glutathione is a liver detox. Suncorella is a binder used for detoxing mostly heavy metals and chemicals. And then, so those are kind of the top things. I've gotten down now to 38.8, sort of. I've gotten sort of through the top things. Again, these are things that are in my garage, so I kind of know really well what they are. Usually what I'll do at this point is kind of stop and say, okay, the top couple things, which one of those makes sense to me? I don't necessarily do the highest numbers and put those in our new supplements list, but I do sort of look at the top numbers and say, okay, which of these actually makes sense to maybe put in our supplements list? So in this case, I did the Florastor because that is good for viral things, and we just got off an airplane and it seems like several viruses are coming up for her. I did do the Chinese herbal formula, again, sort of as an antiviral as well. I'm not 100% sure why that one is testing so well on her, but I just kind of went with it. Byron White is a drainage for Lyme, and I did that one as well just to help her drain. I generally take the top 2 or 3 drainage remedies, homeopathic drainage remedies, and we keep them in our bathroom and we put them on our skin in the morning and in the evening. And I found that putting them on the skin seems to really work best for us versus taking them sublingually. Just the skin, rubbing a couple drops on the skin twice a day seems to really do it for us. So I take usually from ZYTO the top 2 or 3 drainage remedies, and I switch up those and put the new ones in the bathroom. And that generally tends to help us keep draining and make sure we don't get stuck as we work through some of the chelation that we're still working on, for example. So I always take the top 2 or 3 drainage remedies. In this case, I took the Byron White, I took the Blastocystis, and I did those 2, and I'm not sure that I did, the next one down on the list, if I look through, was Parasolve NET remedy number 6. I don't think I did that one because it was at 22.27. I just did the top 2, the Byron White and the Blastocystis. So I did those 2. The other, I did do the Retazorb glutathione. I did do that one at 46.48. I add that into her liquid medicines that she takes. I did not do the diethyl, the 48.38. That's a parasite medication for worms, and I figure while she's going through just getting off the plane, being exposed to some mold, some viral issues, let's not go after parasites right now. We'll do that maybe in a couple weeks or on the next full moon. So I did not put her on the parasite medication even though it's testing relatively high. I did, however, put her on the ADP at 27.86. ADP is oil of oregano, and it's very good against mold and fungus. And because I knew we had just had an exposure and that was coming up, positive 27, I said, okay, let's do that one. So I did do the ADP. I did also do the 26.45, which is the Multimins. Multimins is a mineral supplement. We usually do it on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. It's part of our chelation program. We chelate Monday through Friday and we remineralize on Saturday and Sunday. So usually what I'll do is I'll take ZYTO and I'll find the mineral that's testing the best on us, and I'll put that one into our mineral supplement for the weekend. We usually, the things that are in sort of my garage database are multimins, citramins, concentrates, and fulvic humic. So between those, I kind of look and see which one tests the highest, and this time the multimins tested the highest, so I did do that one. So I kind of added a bunch of supplements here to her supplement list based on what's testing well. The next thing I do is I go to the end of the list where the negative numbers are, And the more negative the number, the less beneficial it is. So if anything is testing at kind of -5 or below -5, I take it off of our supplement list. I say, okay, that's not helping us anymore. For some reason it's testing negative. Maybe it's overloading our kidney or our liver, or it's just not beneficial anymore. So I tend to take those off the supplements list unless I have a good reason to keep it on. A good reason to keep it on might be something like it's tick season and we're on astragalus. Astragalus can help prevent Lyme disease if you get bit. I like to stay on astragalus during tick season. So if it's testing a little bit negative, I might say, okay, maybe it is overloading our body a little bit, but let's stay on it because it is tick season. So that would be an example where I would stay on something even if it's testing negative. But what I do is I kind of go to the end and I kind of say, okay, is she on any of these very negative things? Are any of those, she's on any of those? I like to just kind of check and see if that's the case. Usually it's not the case. Usually whatever she's on starts to test around 0, close to 0, and then I say, okay, let's take her off. So anything less than -5, I generally take her off. Anything close to 0, I kind of evaluate on a case-to-case basis, and I say, okay, maybe it makes sense to take her off this, maybe it doesn't make sense to take her off this. I kind of evaluate that on a case-to-case basis. And anything kind of below, in this case, given these numbers going up to 150 or so, I tend to say, okay, anything below 15, I'm not going to really add. It's not testing strong enough for me to really add to her program, again, unless I have a good reason. So I add some supplements that are testing well. I delete the supplements that are not testing as well, specifically those below -5. And then the next thing I do is I take the rest of her supplements list that she was previously on, and I search, because this is such a long list here, I search in the PDF file for those items, and I look at what are their numbers, and I say, okay, if it's below -5, I delete it off her supplements list in general, and if it's close to 0, I kind of make a case-by-case judgment. I search for things like which mineral is testing the best. Here the multi-mins came up pretty high, but sometimes they don't, and sometimes I have to kind of search through the list and see which mineral came up the highest. Sometimes I have to search through the list a little bit to find out which drainage remedy came up the highest, because I want to keep her on a mineral on the weekends and I want to keep the drainage going. So that's kind of how I use the ZYTO results, the balancers. I think that overall, for me, ZYTO has two main things it helps us with. One is the treatments, which again I think are good for allergies, they're good for methylation, and they're good for drainage detox. And the second thing I use ZYTO for is to kind of help me update our supplements list. Yes, I could muscle test those using my own techniques at home, and sometimes I do that. But the truth is, I've got hundreds of things on this list here, and for me to go through those hundreds of things with each member of my family every month is a lot of time and a lot of energy. Additionally, ZYTO does have its own databases, and sometimes we find a new supplement or a new herb or a new homeopathic remedy in the ZYTO database that we don't have at home that seems to be really helping. So ZYTO has also somewhat, to a small extent, helped me add some supplements that have been, and find some supplements that have been beneficial to us. So those are the things I use ZYTO for, and there are 2 more videos, I think, or so, where I go through different ZYTO scans to give other examples of how I interpret and go through the scans. My hope with this video is that the 4 years and lots of money and lots of time that we've spent on this, I hope that this video kind of explain some of the things I wish I had known when we started, and some of the things I found out over the years by trial and error and learned the hard way. So this is kind of everything about ZYTO that I wish I had known from the beginning. And again, I'm not a ZYTO practitioner. I'm not paid by ZYTO. I'm not trying to become a ZYTO practitioner. I'm just a user and trying who tried to understand how ZYTO could be beneficial to the healing process.